welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, as always, Randy Isbell, and with me, over in front of me, is Robert Hagan. Robert, how are you doing tonight?
Another great night as we get ready for some baseball. I'm so excited to finally get in. A lot of news coming from MLB over the last couple days. Some sad news on some front of the MLB, but excited to see some changes in some high school stuff. We'll talk about that at the top of the next hour. But
high school stuff changing, LCSC stuff is changing. We're starting to see more sports coming. We actually have scheduled sporting events this week that are not just the basketball team. Basketball team's still going strong. We talked last week about how things are changing for them as far as how they can make it into the NAIA tournament. Slightly easier road, I guess, since it's basically win a best of three and you're in. And if you're not, then you might still get in because there's a lot of teams just not playing this year in the NAIA. So we'll get to that. Both the men's and women's basketball teams played a doubleheader last weekend. We'll talk about that. Hall of Fame kind of got announced. We will talk about that. Somebody has a new leader in our NBA game. I'm excited about that.
Don't rub it in.
We'll rub it in about an hour and a half. What else we got? We got, Gonzaga dominating like normal.
Bowling. We got our bowling going.
Bowling is back. Joel Damon is back. He didn't have the greatest weekend, but at least he's back out there.
19 days until Daytona. Excited for that one.
And the return of the most famous Robert Predicts Wrestling. That is coming back.
I after we did Survivor Series, I don't know what it was. There was just something.
Did they get you hooked?
I went back up to your place and we watched Survivor Series that Sunday, and it kind of got me hooked again. And I'm like, okay, so I've been following along, watching SmackDown, watching Raw. So it'll be interesting. I actually knew who some of the competitors were, and so
it is the Royal Rumble this Sunday.
We'll get to that too.
Very big into that's my favorite pay-per-view of the year. Big WWE news, I guess we'll just get into right now before we get into the football. WWE Network, which is their streaming service, which was kind of one of the first of its kind, really, where you had a bunch of live stuff on top of all of the old wrestling events that you could watch on there. That has been purchased by NBC. It will be a part of Peacock at some point. They haven't really announced anything. So if you're already a member of Peacock, now you're going to get the WWE Network, whether you like it or not.
I just had the free subscription, like I was telling you a little bit ago. I guess I'm gonna have to
just chill out a little bit.
Chill out the $4.99, and
I'll get the $9.99 because that's what the WWE Network was, and then I get The Office for free, I guess. Whatever else is on NBC.
But I don't remember. Is Disney Plus part of that whole category? That's the ABC and that
Disney
side.
Plus and ESPN and all of Disney was in talks with the WWE before. That's why you saw a lot of WWE stuff on sports centers in the beginning of last year before, obviously, COVID messed everything up. And they kind of lost that deal.
Darn C word. I hate that.
So, ESPN almost had UFC and WWE, but now we're not going to see that. It'll be on Peacock, and NBC spent $1 billion. That's a billion with a B to get the WWE Network.
That's just crazy. Who would shell out that much more?
NBC.
And fill the pockets of McMahon family again.
I'm a wrestling fan. I know how much content's on the WWE Network.
Oh yeah, there's a ton. There's a ton of it. So.
And unlike the UFC with ESPN, where you get the ESPN Plus membership and it still costs you $60-$70 to watch your UFC pay-per-view, WWE Network pay-per-views are right on the network.
Right.
You don't have to pay your $60-$70 anymore.
All right, Denise. I guess this is your selling ad to her.
Sorry, Denise.
No.
$9.99. That's all it is. It's $10 a month. You can watch all of your NBC stuff. You can make them watch This Is Us. Is that on NBC?
Yeah, I think so. So all I got to do is just update. I got to update my Peacock to the premium.
And he's going to get all the wrestling. The documentaries on WWE Network. Fantastic.
I want to watch some of them. I've seen a few of them, watching and getting back in. They talk about some of those things. So
well, now that we've lost everybody that was listening to us, let's go ahead and talk NFL. Good weekend. Not as exciting of a weekend as I was hoping. First game we'll talk about here, Tampa Bay, Green Bay. That did live up to the hype. That was a pretty good game. Some very questionable calls at the end of it, but that's what's going to happen when the game is really close.
I mean, not just questionable calls at the end. I mean, you go back into even the first possession that Tampa Bay had. I mean, third down and long, third and 14, and you give up Green Bay drops back and gives up a pass and lets Evans gets behind the coverage for 27 yards. And same thing happened on the touchdown pass, 13-yard touchdown pass. The same thing. You let these guys get behind them and able to dump it in. I mean, the same play when Scotty Miller scored, at the end of the second quarter. You just can't allow that to happen, especially one game from your accomplishment for the year. I mean, you got to be a little bit smarter.
I'm curious about the thought process for Green Bay there, but I want to say the first 2 or 3 drives, Tampa Bay, if they're on third down, they were going to get the first.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if Green Bay just was sitting back too far and allowing too much room, and they didn't want to get beat deep. But yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. Tampa Bay, especially in that first drive, I noticed quickly, and then I guess it was the second drive where they punted, but they had a lot of third downs in there, and they're really running the clock.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. I'm looking, they were 3rd and 4 at one point. They were 3rd and 9 at one point, and 3rd and 7 at one point, just in the first drive. Mm-hmm. And they give up big plays, 27 yards. Then you get another one. They give up another 14 yards, and then the touchdown for 15. So it's just crazy looking at that. That's one thing I love going back to NFL Network and looking. They do break things down for you and leave it each play, but just some silly coverage calls, in that game in the first half. The second half didn't look near as much as bad, but your quarterback got worse. But that's the problem. Green Bay didn't capitalize on any of, what was it? The total of 3 points off of
the interception.
Yeah, I mean, that's just terrible. I mean, you've got to do something with that.
Yeah, 3 interceptions by Brady in the second half. They do get a touchdown off the first interception, but it was the next 2 that really came into play, where they went -5 yards on back-to-back 3 and outs. And we'll get into those Brady interceptions, because I have had conversations with people about those, and it's curious. Real quick, Ava, no, the Undertaker documentary, any good? It's fantastic.
Yeah, I guess I got to update.
It is still really weird to see Undertaker not just be the Undertaker character and talk about backstage stuff, because he was like the last old school wrestler that kept his character. If you saw him out on the street, obviously he's not going to roll his eyes back and stuff, but he's not going to sit there and talk about his conversation with Steve Austin and catering before the match at SummerSlam. Now he is, and those stories are just so cool. And there's 2 different podcasts with him and Steve Austin sitting and just talking for an hour and drinking whiskey and drinking beer and talking about the good old days. It's good stuff. Anyways, let's talk about those 3 interceptions by Brady, and we won't get into the first one because that was on him. I don't think the last 2 were really on him.
No, I think the second one was definitely on Evans. I mean,
not the best throw.
No, it was a little high, but it's still. I mean, Evans has got to get up a little bit higher. I mean, it didn't look like it was. He didn't take a real strong leap at the ball, but I forget who made that interception, but he was just in the right place at the right time as he was covering the back crossing route. I remember it was Miller on the backside of that route. Evans was the intermediate. Miller was the deep guy there, and he was just able to come back and get that pick. So, I mean, playing your position and seeing and watching them roll coverage, and that was 100% a great play for Green Bay. What do you do? I mean,
yeah, like I said, it wasn't a perfect throw by Brady, but everyone was freaking out, like, oh, here he goes, he's throwing 2 interceptions, the GOAT, whatever. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't really his fault. The third one was definitely not his fault. Maybe a lot of people are going to look at it as a bad decision to throw that ball, but it's 3rd and 2, you're about midfield. Leonard Fournette completely whiffs on his protection scheme. Is blocking the left side when there's a free runner on the right. Brady decides to go one-on-one with Evans, let's go. Throws it as deep as he can while on his back foot getting hit for a 43-year-old guy.
He threw up a lollipop.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, you throw that thing straight up like that.
And you're hoping for a one-on-one. Unfortunately, Evans does not see that he has thrown it. By the time he's able to turn around, I don't even blame Evans for it. Because, I mean, he's not expecting it to end up where it was. But by the time he does turn around and realize the ball's in the air, he's 5 yards, 6 yards away from it.
The problem I have with that, if you're going to call that guy the GOAT, and which, we'll talk about it, and you look at all those guys that played this weekend, every one of those quarterbacks this weekend, you look at their stats, they had a great statistical weekend, except for, Brady giving up 3 interceptions. But if you're going to call yourself that good and you got to read the coverage, you should have saw that guy. And if you look at that, they lining up, I'm surprised he didn't move Fournette earlier.
Right.
Because you watch him come right behind that linebacker was right over the backside of the D end, and it was just a sprint. There was no way that right tackle was going to bust out and try to get both of those guys.
They're most likely, I mean, obviously I'm not a quarterback and I'm not anywhere near the level that Tom Brady is, but you're not going to read the coverage correctly every single play.
Yeah, that for me, that's totally on him. I mean, he needs to make that.
But everyone is going, it's a bad decision to throw it out. It was third down. You're punting after that anyways. And unless your punter's good and gets it inside the 10, it was still down to the 24.
Yeah,
it's only a 4-yard difference from a touchback.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, so
it's
that double-edged sword. Yeah, I mean,
yes, it looks bad for the stats. We'll talk about Phillip Rivers more, obviously, as he announced his retirement, and we'll get into his stats and his stuff. But he had a great philosophy where he's like, I don't care about my stats. If we were down 14, I'm hucking it. I'll put it into double coverage. We're going to press even more. And he had a lot of interceptions added to his total just from doing everything he could to try to get back into the game. And that's how I saw Tom Brady on that play of, we're going to punt if I get hit here. So let's give Evans a chance and maybe we can get a first down. Didn't work out that way, but the defense for Tampa Bay was very, very good. Robert left on here saying Tampa Bay for the win. They'll contain the whiz kid. I don't know about containing. And Buffalo attempted to contain, and that didn't work very well. But we'll get into that game here shortly. Let's get into the decision. So 31-23 after Tampa Bay kicks a field goal. Green Bay moves down the field. 1st and goal at the 8. And twice in those 3 plays, Aaron Rodgers had a chance to run the football and instead decided to throw it into heavy coverage. Both gets incompleted. Now you have 4th down and 8, and they go ahead and kick the field goal with 2:05 left. And the entire football universe went, What? Yeah. You're going to give the ball back to Tom Brady still down with 2:05 left? You're never seeing this ball again. And they didn't. What are your thoughts?
I've been back and forth on it, and I've watched it. I watched it live. I went back to the idea, okay, was it the smart thing to do? I think that boils down to the communication between LaFleur and him. I mean, Rodgers, it needed to be – you heard Aaron talk. He thought going into that play it was going to be 4-down territory.
I don't buy it.
Well,
I don't buy that. For the main reason, if he thought it was going to be 4th down territory, he's running on 3rd down.
Right.
He throws it into the end zone trying to get the touchdown instead of going, well, I have another play, but let me get as close as possible.
So my issue with it in that point would go back to the last time they scored, they went for 2. I would have kicked the field goal. I know playing analytics and everybody talks about that now, getting the 8-point game and doing that. If it was a whole different thing and they kicked the field goal earlier and then came back, I would definitely think, okay, kick the field goal with the 2:05 because then they get the 4.
That doesn't change it.
They get the 4 time, but you're getting points. You're down to a 1-possession game where you only have to kick a field goal. You onside kick it and take your chances.
So what you're talking about is when they scored the touchdown, what are we looking at here?
So it would have been
24 seconds to go in the 3rd quarter.
Right. They should have, instead of going for 2, which And
so you would have rather been 28-24
instead of taking a chance throwing that pass at a rookie in the end zone. Sue tips the ball there. You see him tip it too. So I mean, that's not all on Aaron Rodgers or the rookie not making the catch. But I think if they kick the field goal there, the extra point, and then it's back to a 7-point game again, then I would feel a little bit better kicking the field goal. Then you've got the 4 timeouts. You've got the 2-minute warning, 3 left, and take a chance. But you look, that defense did not do anything basically in the fourth quarter at all. So, I mean, it's a roll of the dice either way. I think the communication part should have been figured out a long time ago between those two.
Whether it's 4 down territory.
On Thursday, they should have had that in the game plan. On Friday, because on Fridays, they go through all their walkthroughs and all that. That should have been a decision, if that scenario came up, which you should know that scenario is going to come up.
And, this is the first time in this situation, and he went the safe route.
All right.
And he's owning up to it and living with it.
Yeah, and
that's fine. I disagree. I go for 2 there at the end of the third quarter because you make it a field goal game if you get it. You're at that point, you're trying to make it a field goal possession game. Yes, you don't get it, and it changes the way things work in the second half. But even if kicking that field goal makes it a 3-point game instead of the 5-point game like it did, I'm still not doing it with 2 minutes to go. I might not even do it with 4 minutes to go when you have Tom Brady on the other side. If you're telling me 4 minutes left in this game, I'm within 10 yards of tying or taking the lead. In this case, it would be for the chance to tie it. Or just cut the lead a little bit and then hope Tom Brady gives me the ball back. I know Tom Brady has thrown 3 interceptions in the second half. There's a reason why Brady is now going to his 10th Super Bowl.
All right. I think my main issue is they should have capitalized on those 3 interceptions. It was a totally different second half from Brady. I mean, throwing up the lollipop to overshooting Evans there on the goal line, hitting that interception. I think it's a totally different ball game if they have to capitalize on those. So you look back at some of those play calls that they did too, and don't take nothing away from Sue and Jason Pierre-Paul. Those guys got some pressure on Rodgers. I mean, I think what I read, they pressured 21 times. They got to him some kind of pressure of 21 times to throw Rodgers way off. So, I mean, in that case, you got to do something. You've got to adjust somehow, take one guy out of the route, keep an extra guy back, something different. But if you don't capitalize on the turnovers, that's where you're going to lose that ball game. So I think they lost it earlier than what they did there.
It definitely did not help that Green Bay was completely one-dimensional in this game. 48 passing attempts to 16 rushes. I know in the second half you're down at one point 28-10 after Aaron Jones gets injured and fumbles the football, and Tampa Bay scores that touchdown really quick. But you got to give them. You got 3 good running backs there, Jones, Williams, and Dillon. And they combined for 16 carries. I mean, I know they're still getting 4 yards a carry. They only get 67 yards, but again, they just weren't carrying the ball very much. And that allows Tampa Bay to bring that kind of pressure.
Right. And they really didn't even get I'm drawing a blank. The main receiver there, Adams, the ball any. I mean, everything was going
15 targets.
15 targets, but I think he only had
9 catches.
70, 50, 70,
67 yards.
67 yards.
They kept him close.
Valdez-Scantling had, 4 touches with 115.
Yeah, well, you get 50 on them.
That's so, I mean, I think they need one weapon. And the question there, with everything after the game, Rodgers holding himself accountable from some of it.
Do you think Green Bay wins this game if they do not spend their first pick on a quarterback?
Oh,
Like I haven't looked at the draft board
honestly
recently about who went right after Jordan Love, but add in another offensive lineman or a tight end. I mean, obviously Tunyon was great, but add in a key linebacker. Maybe there's a wide receiver there you could have got. That turned out pretty good.
Right. And see, and I don't remember exactly where did they
were at the end of the first round.
So I'm looking Jordan Love. So right after we have Jordan Brooks, Patrick Queen, Isaiah Wilson.
Was really good.
T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr. I mean, there was a decent one. Yeah. I don't know. Does it change the outcome? He might have had one more weapon, but I mean, he's still pretty green, even with some of the other couple guys. I mean, there were some good names
to think about.
Yeah,
I mean, looking at their future, but you give Rodgers one more weapon, or you give him an offensive lineman to help, where he doesn't get sacked 5 times.
Yeah, well, and then you look, there's Chase Claypool, who went 49th. I mean, he would have been sitting there too.
Yep.
I mean, you get a good point for Van Jefferson. There was a few names that you're looking at that list right now of. Is there anybody major there that would have stood out? Nah.
I mean, obviously it changes on where they go. Michael Pittman Jr. had a good year,
right?
But you had Phil Rivers thrown to him. T. Higgins didn't have that great of a year, but how many quarterbacks played for Cincinnati after Joe Burrow got hurt? So, or at least it felt like a lot. It might have only been a couple, but
yeah, I mean that's a great argument. If Love doesn't go there, I think it might be totally different ballgame.
All right, let's go to the AFC game, which was a little bit of a disappointment, but not really surprising. As Kansas City ends up winning that game, was it by a 14-point margin?
Yeah, remember it was 14 the other way. If it would have been the other direction, Haven would have joined us.
Oh, yeah, that's true. 38-24 was the final score. I don't even feel like it was that close, but in ways I felt like it kind of was. But who would have thought that in the AFC Championship game, the Kansas City defense would have figured out how to stop somebody in the red zone? How many times did Buffalo have a chance to put up big points and end up with a field goal?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I mean, Buffalo's problem, though, is Singletary's not the answer. And Moss really – I don't think Moss had a ton of yards, but –
Moss, I don't even think played.
No, I mean, he's hurt.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Moss, even earlier in the year, but you can't rely on Allen to be your leading rusher with 88 yards rushing. And passing, I mean, those are some nice numbers. 28 to 48, 287, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I mean, most quarterbacks would love that. But you can't rely on Allen. But here I'm saying that, and as we rely on Lamar in Baltimore. I mean, Lamar.
But you still had good running backs.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, we've got J.K.
Lamar works so well with Baltimore because he has so many options in the backfield that, yes, you have to key on Lamar because he can run, but he could also hand it off.
Right. Allen doesn't have that. No. I mean, Singletary is not that kind of running back.
6 carries for 17 yards.
Yeah.
That was Devin Singletary.
Yeah, it's not what Buffalo needs to do there. I mean, they need to figure something out.
That's why I disagreed with Haven last week. I wanted to be a close game, but Buffalo is way too one-dimensional. And I have to give full credit to the Kansas City Chiefs secondary. They did an amazing job just blanketing receivers. How many times did they show replays where you could count to 5 seconds, and at that point, nobody is even close to being open?
Yeah, it's just – it wasn't the – for me, it wasn't the firepower coming out of Buffalo's defense to try to slow things down. Hill just looked unbelievable with everything. He only had 11 targets, but caught 9 of them. I mean – those are some pretty good odds. Throw me the ball, and I'm going to put it up. But how do you stop Kelsey? How do you leave Kelsey wide open?
Well, Buffalo has had a terrible time against tight ends anyways.
I couldn't believe that.
Tyreek Hill, 9 catches, 172 yards. You have to stop one or the other, and they couldn't stop either.
Take a coin flip. Okay, who am I going to cover this week? But
29 completions by Patrick Mahomes. 22 of them were between Hill and Kelsey.
Yeah.
That's all he needed. And they're not even running the ball that great. CEH coming off of his injury. You knew he wasn't going to see the ball very often, especially this week. We might see a bit more of him in the Super Bowl. Darrell Williams had an okay game. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell was injured, and Sammy Watkins was injured too. But honestly, to me, yes, Kansas City once again puts up 38 points. Mahomes has a great game, 325, 3 touchdowns. It's the defense. Kansas City defense has been underrated all year until people were saying, oh, it's a top 5 defense. I don't know if it's that big, but it was this week.
Right.
And they completely shut down Buffalo.
I think all the skeptics for this last week have been those ones that they haven't been able to win by greater than 6. And so everybody was saying, they've got to show, they got to step up again. And I think they did. They did. They came out, played Andy Reid football. They actually come out and did what they were supposed to do, and I didn't look to see how many times that Allen was pressured, but he was under the gun a ton there, as his biggest play was 34 yards, which tells me everything was dunk here, dunk there, and but when my problem with Kansas City's defense on this game was, if you know that they were that one-dimensional with Allen and you still let him have 88 yards, there's still a little bit of a crack there that I'm worried about with Tampa Bay coming in, if they can get on him about that.
Well, so here's the thing. They went full-on covering the pass. So you're going to leave holes at times for Josh Allen, who was only able to run the ball 7 times. Here's the problem. You could leave a hole 10 times as big for Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady's never going to rush for 88 yards. Kansas City doesn't have to worry about that. They do have to worry about Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette a little bit more than they had to worry about Singletary Yeldon.
Well, and I'm looking here right now. If you look at that, the people that touch the ball, you've got Beasley, who was playing with a broken leg.
Right, that's crazy.
Go figure, week 17, he doesn't play, and then he comes back and plays the other ones. But you look at that, Beasley, Diggs, Yeldon had 4 receptions. Brown only had 2. Singletary with 2. And now that you look over on the Kansas City side, you got Kelsey, you got Hill, you got Hardman, you got Williams, Hilaire. Who are you going to take right there? If you just looked at the receiving core, I definitely would have jumped over Kansas City's way. I'm just looking at the matchups.
It's going to be interesting. Super Bowl is going to be really, really interesting to break down. We'll talk a little bit about it here at the end of our football hour if we have some time, but we will go into full-on deep dive in what next week will probably be our last football hour. Obviously, when we recap the Super Bowl, it'll be the first thing we talk about, but I don't know if we're going to go a full hour on it. But next week will definitely be our last. We'll go a full hour just previewing the Super Bowl, breaking everything down, telling you what we think, matchup to matchup and everything. But let's go ahead and say that you are listening to the R&R Sports Report right here on KLCZ 88.9 FM. It is currently 32 degrees outside. You can also check us out on the R&R Sports Report Facebook and YouTube pages. And also check out the KLCZ Facebook page as well. We'll try to get this video on there once we get things worked out. We're trying to do new things this semester. And there you go.
If you're a student here at LCSC and want a voice heard, the Associated Student of the LCSC are here to listen. If you need funding for your student club or campus event, want to voice your opinion on how student fees are spent, or just want to help out with student government, the ASLCSC office is located in room 221 of the sub. All students are encouraged to stop by and say hi to their student reps anytime, or to join council meetings on Tuesdays at 4:30 in the Senate chambers next to the office.
All right. And John Bruni is joining us on the Facebook page, like you can, in comments. No players going to the Hall of Fame in baseball, or any of the questionable players going to make it. John, if you stick around with us for about an hour, I know that's a big ask, but we are going to get way into that. It was really, I watched the ceremony. Well, the announcement was 2 seconds long, but I watched that live, and then the aftermath of Curt Schilling, and we'll get into that for sure. Let's talk about some coaching changes. Not a lot this week, but the Philadelphia Eagles do sign Nick Sirianni, the offensive coordinator from the Colts. I'm okay with that. I do love the fact that every hire, right? So far, every head coaching hire is a first-time head coach.
Yeah.
I like that trend.
New blood in there. And that's what we've been talking about. And everybody has been on the new train of getting some new blood. And same thing with Watson getting, wanting Houston to get something fresh down there and get away from some of the older coaches and some new excitement. I mean, you look at how they start scouting plays. I mean, look at what Baltimore did, and Greg Roman. Greg Roman used to be a pound it, and they still do, but they went to the offense and reconfigured everything around Lamar. I mean, that's what needs to happen. I'm excited.
Find an offensive coordinator that will change game plans based on personnel and not try to fit the personnel that they have into the specific game plan. It's going to work. And you saw that with Indianapolis. Once they got Phillip Rivers in, they changed the game plan to his strengths, and it worked out pretty well.
It's the same thing with what Andy Reid's done with Patrick Mahomes, letting him do it. And the same with...
and that's why everyone thinks Eric Bieniemy needs to be hired now. But unfortunately, all the jobs get taken before Bieniemy gets knocked out of the playoffs.
So, I don't remember if it was you and I talking about this
we talked about it last week.
What do you think, and maybe we'll revisit it here, but what do you think about, okay, let's just put a pause?
That was my idea.
That's what I couldn't remember.
It has to go.
I think that the more I thought about it this past week, I was like, that's pretty smart. Put a pause on it.
You think about it. So let's talk.
Super Bowl to the end of February. You've got 1 month that
free agency starts. Yeah. I want to see the first week of March. So you have that last month of before this season technically ends, and they go into the next year season.
Let's type a letter to Roger Goodell.
I'm too lazy.
No, seriously, Roger Goodell. Here you go from the R&R Sports Report. Randy Isbell, Lewiston, Idaho. Here we go.
Here's my idea.
Here's the idea. Roll with it. Let's do something. I mean, it sounds a lot easier than most people would think. I mean,
you got to think that the Pro Bowl came from a fan. Right. What they're doing this year, so maybe it'll work. But honestly, I think it will help with the discussion. We'll just get into it for a minute right now. But the whole talk once again that all of these hires come in and no black head coaches get signed. There's two left in the NFL, but the thing that's a big issue for me is all of the names that they're talking about that should have head coaching jobs are still coaching right now. Right. You have Eric Bieniemy, you have Brian Leftwich, you have Todd Bowles. Now, obviously, Todd Bowles is a former head coach for my Jets for a few years. I thought he was fine. He just didn't have that top leadership ability for me. I knew once he went back to being a defensive coordinator, he was going to kill it, and he has. So I'm under the belief that I'm very, very happy that we're getting new head coaches. It's not same old over some of these black younger coaches that should get a chance. So at least there's that. But all these great black coordinators are still coaching. And like we just said, by the time that their season is finally done, because they're doing such a great job, there's no openings left.
Right. I'm scared, not to get off the tangent, but I'm scared for your team, what it's going to do over the next couple of years.
It's all about Watson.
Watson,
please.
I think it's going to be, but I think the couple that are still, for me, it's scary is Jim Caldwell. I mean, Jim has been all over the place. Uh-huh. I mean, he's decent in different places. Leslie Frazier had a great defensive game plan against Baltimore. Buffalo did really good. I just don't see Caldwell being that coach that goes into Houston to try to fix things. I just don't like that. Do they have? Maybe Houston has something figured out with the enemy. I just don't know. As far as Byron Leftwich, he's just finishing his second full year.
Right.
That's the crazy thing. And I was sitting there talking with Denise about this. I said, go figure. Look at this guy right here. I said, he's coaching the GOAT right now. Byron Leftwich started 3 or 4 years after Brady and retired a couple years. He's only retired in 2015, I believe it was, and now has been coaching since 2019. And I said, look at this combination. I mean, like Brady's offensive coordinator is a guy that played less years in both sides. And so, I mean, I think Leftwich will eventually get his chance, but I think Byron likes what he's doing right now with Arians and with Brady. And
Arians is a great person to learn from. He was with him in Arizona. That's where he got his coaching start.
And I think it's smart. I don't want to say he should be rushing out, but as far as the enemy, I mean, how many more times does he have to be proven over and over the last few years? I think.
But who's going to wait for him?
Yeah.
If you're coaching. If you're the offensive coordinator on the team that makes it to the Super Bowl every year, there's going to be no coaching jobs left. And you talked about Caldwell and Frazier. They are the only two that have completed 2 interviews for Houston. David Coley is scheduled to have his second interview. You know him well, Baltimore offensive line coach, defensive line coach, one of those two. So they are still looking, and that is it. That is the last head coaching job out there. And that is a job that you have to wonder if you even want now if Deshaun Watson does get traded. I mean, can they hire somebody? Watson said, reportedly, obviously I haven't seen him come out and speak on camera about it, so I'm just going off of reports. But he has said that it doesn't matter who is the head coach, he's done with the owner. I mean, could there be mending of bridges by draft time? Who knows? But that job is nowhere near enticing if you have lost Watson and you're $30-some million under the cap or over the cap.
Yeah, especially with having to move things around. I mean, the same thing that's going to come with a lot of these teams. They're going to be so far over the cap. What are they going to do movement-wise? So
I'm so afraid of what the Saints have to do.
The Saints are going to look bad. Even Green Bay. Green Bay is going to look good. I think they're 30 over. And I know that, and when we get to that point, that's going to be a couple episodes down the road because
when we get into free agency.
But
I will say, just real quick before we get going, we got a couple of quarterbacks we need to talk about. Here is what I want the Jets to do, and they can do it. Trade for Watson. Give up 3 of your 4 first-round picks you have the next 2 years. Give up a couple other picks and Darnold. Get Watson. But keep number 2 if you can. If Houston says we absolutely will not trade unless you give up number 2, then you give up number 2. That's fine. I'll just get Watson. But once free agency comes, I want Allen Robinson and I want Aaron Jones.
Yeah, because there's no way that the Packers are going to be able to.
Well,
they've already made it quite clear that in the article that I read today, they're not moving away from Aaron Rodgers, so they can't play Jones the same amount of money.
Well, Jones is a free agent coming up this year,
right?
And that's why they drafted Dillon.
Right.
Aaron Jones is finally going to be #free.
Yeah. Free Aaron Jones.
My Twitter friend.
You need to bring back that poster, and we'll put it up behind.
I need to bring back that poster, but put the Jets logo on it and send it to him and see if he gets a laugh.
Yeah, no kidding. But the other one, and you and I talked about real brief there earlier, was.
Haley just satted our whole show.
She's struggling. I understand.
She was bummed.
I wasn't even one of those ones that picked on her or anything like that.
She got a lot.
So
she did get a lot.
I decided, I was smart, step away. But the one I want to bring up real quick, and I know we want to move on, but and I said something to you about it here as we were setting up, and I know it's early. Mel Kiper, Devontae Smith, with the number 2 pick goes to New York.
I'd be fine with it. I said it after the national championship game. That's who I want. Is it the smartest pick? Probably not. That's just
Right.
I want Devontae Smith, but the Jets might not have him.
Yeah, and if you get Watson,
If we get Watson and keep the 2 pick, and we get Allen Robinson, and we get Devontae Smith, and we get Aaron Jones,
it'll be an interesting. It's going to be interesting when we start talking free agents.
You do understand the Jets aren't going to get any of that, right?
Probably
they're going to draft 4 busts in those first-round picks. It's just going to be terrible.
I wonder how much Johnson's going to get in his hands into that part after he gets back from coming overseas.
Yeah, hopefully stays far, far away. One last coaching note, and a really cool one. The Washington football team, who had terrible press and news forever, have some good news and some well-deserved press. As Jennifer King becomes the NFL's first full-time Black female assistant position coach. She is going to be the assistant running back coach. She came in there. I was reading the story earlier today as an intern, and just wowed them with her knowledge and how she was able to take on that position. So congratulations to her for being the first there. And she was getting a lot of love on social media today. Very well deserved, and hopefully it works out. It's nice to see females be able to get different coaching positions. And both we've been seeing it in basketball. We haven't seen it really in baseball yet. But basketball, the female coach in San Antonio actually basically became the head coach for a little bit after Popovich got kicked out of that game, and you're seeing it a bit more here in the NFL. And of course, whoever is going to give my team the best chance to win, hire them.
Yeah,
let's go.
That's the thing. It's how well they interview. I don't care who you are, what color of skin you got. Yeah. Male, female, whatever. I mean, I've seen some unbelievable people that are players that have come through that, dang, I had a really good one, but they shied her away, and she went and started playing volleyball because it was more of a girl sport. And I was like, you gotta give each of them.
My daughter's a 3-year-old. She has been practicing to be a linebacker since she could walk. She hits hard.
I can't wait to watch her hit somebody a few times.
All right, let's talk about Phillip Rivers. He has announced that he's going to retire. Just some stats real quick. 240 starts in the 17 seasons. He went 134 and 106. Just shy of a 65% career completion percentage. 5th all-time, and you're going to hear 5th a lot. 5th all-time in total passing yards with 63,444. He's 5th all-time in all-time pass completions, 6th all-time in pass attempts. 5th all-time with 421 touchdowns to his 209 interceptions. Only played in 12 playoff games, had 35 game-winning drives, and tied for 10th all-time with 29 fourth-quarter comebacks in his career. Very good career. And one of those really weird ones that if Eli Manning and his crew didn't hate the owner for the Chargers, Phillip Rivers could have been a Giant.
Yeah, I don't think his career been anywhere close there. I mean, Phillip was known as you and I talked. It wasn't about stats for him; it was about him playing the game. My question is: he got enough games in for?
Haley, I love you. Haley says, speaking of someone with children retiring to start his own team, yes, Phillip Rivers has like 9, 10 kids at this point.
That's a lot of kids. But with him only making 12 playoff appearances, is it enough to get him in the Hall of Fame? I mean, that's where that line is. I mean, you see his numbers. And for a man that was not about numbers, for him to still be 5th all time, and I think that puts him above Joe Montana on that list.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
a lot of that, though, I was looking at this earlier because I knew this question was going to come up. I've heard it all day today on Sports Talk Radio. You look at the leaders in passing yards in the NFL. They're all modern day. The oldest one is Brett Favre. Well, Dan Marino is 6th, and Brett Favre is 4th. Those are 2 older guys. John Elway's 10th. I mean, it's a long way down until you get to Joe Montana, who's 21st.
Yeah. And
a lot of that, Joe Montana is below Kerry Collins and Joe Flacco. So
God.
The NFL is a little different now.
Yeah.
Than it was. I mean, it's Breeze 1, Brady 2, Peyton Manning 3, Brett Favre 4, and then Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is, I think, right on that edge. I hate people that say he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's a Hall of Famer. If you're not a first ballot Hall of Famer, then, or if you don't believe he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, then you don't believe he's a Hall of Famer. What's the difference of putting him on your ballot the first time he's eligible and not the next, unless there's just too many names on that ballot that you just could not fit him in. But just to say he's a Hall of Famer, but I wouldn't put him first ballot is.
So do you think
he's in the Hall of Very Good, if you believe that?
So was it a mistake for him to go to Indianapolis?
No, I honestly don't think so. He had a decent year, and they just barely. If Indianapolis was in the NFC, they would have a decent chance of winning the division if he was NFC East. But Chicago makes the playoffs at 8-8. It was just so happened that the AFC was so hard to get into. He had a very good season, especially he didn't really have a lot of receivers there.
And he had a defense this year.
Yeah. I don't know if he's able to push the Chargers into the playoffs. Herbert had a fantastic year and only won a few games. But I don't know. It's really difficult. You look at some of the players on here that are around him in passing yards and not in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, Breeze will be. Brady will be. Peyton Manning will be announced next week. Mm-hmm. But then you get Big Ben, who I don't believe is a Hall of Famer, but he has 2 championships, right?
Right.
And a lot of people think that's the key and it's going to get him over. Eli Manning is 8th. Again, 2 Super Bowl rings. I don't believe he's a Hall of Famer, but he is top 10 in passing yards with 2 Super Bowl rings. Do I think Phillip Rivers is better than Big Ben or Eli? Or how about Matt Ryan, who's 9th? Matt Ryan not winning a Super Bowl either. Is Matt Ryan a Hall of Fame contender?
Matt Ryan's got to figure something out. He ain't going to be in Atlanta much longer, if even this, depending on the draft pick.
Right.
So that might affect him. He's going to be in that same boat that we talked at the very beginning of the year. It's going to be, you've got to get it to the championship games or the Super Bowl to almost save your spot from being on that team. We said that same thing with Aaron Rodgers. I said at the very beginning, Aaron Rodgers has got to push this year to get to that point. It's going to be his last run. So
Aaron Rodgers is really interesting too. Aaron Rodgers is a far better quarterback than Phillip Rivers.
Oh, yeah.
And I do believe Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. But is Phillip Rivers is like that edge.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe Big Ben is. I don't believe Eli is. I don't believe Matt Ryan is.
So he's
Phillip Rivers is right
So
there.
he's like the guy climbing the fence or climbing the rock, pulling himself up. Is he up enough to stand on that mountain, or is he going to slip and fall down?
Do you remember that year? If David Dufenberg is listening, he would know because we've talked about this before. So I watched a documentary on YouTube about this team. Can you believe that there was a year where Phillip Rivers was on a team that finished first in offense, first in defense, and missed the playoffs because their special teams was so bad? Now, do you knock Phillip Rivers for that?
Probably not.
I mean, we put so much emphasis on championships, whether they're Hall of Fame or not. And that's why people think Big Ben is and why Phillip Rivers isn't. But I think Phillip Rivers is a better quarterback than Big Ben. So that's what I say. If you put Big Ben in, you have to put in Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, but I don't like Big Ben making it in there. I don't, even though he does have 2 rings.
All right,
one of them with Jerome Bettis and that one, and yeah.
Another quarterback news, Matthew Stafford. It's really weird that this news came out the way it did. But both Detroit and Matthew Stafford have agreed to trade Matthew Stafford, and they've made it known to everyone. Is that a good move for Stafford? Is it a good move for the Lions? And where does he go?
Well, if you're Steven Story, you want him to go to
Denver.
I don't know if you saw him with that picture on there, but
look at the quarterback.
He's a homer. But if you look at that spot, Matthew Stafford might be. He'd almost be in that age group with Matt Ryan where you're going to have to compete for that job. Whether or not you trade in or not, you're not going to be the automatic starter.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford drafted the year after Matt Ryan.
Yeah. So do you – God, I'm just trying to think. I mean, if you put him, would it be a good fit behind Matt Ryan there?
No. If you're getting rid of Matt Ryan in Atlanta, it's for new blood. It's for a rookie. And I believe that Atlanta would start Matt Ryan to start that year, next year, if they drafted a rookie.
So if you looked and just looking at standings,
there's two names. There's two teams.
If I was looking,
three. Sorry, excuse me, I forgot one. There are three teams I'm thinking of that would be a perfect fit for Matthew Stafford.
I think Philadelphia might be one.
No, that's such a mess.
Are you
going to get rid of both Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz?
I think he'd be a guy in the back.
Stafford's not going to go anywhere to be a backup.
But I think he won't get the money. I guarantee you he won't get the money for starting there. So, I mean.
Well, he already has his contract. When you trade for him, you have to get
how much money is he getting? I mean, if you look just in the NFC, do you go to the Giants? Do you go to Philadelphia? I mean, there's a lot of interesting there.
Stafford has 2 years left. His base salary next year is 9.5, and the year after is 12.5.
So the other one, but it was such a back and forth with even those two guys. Add one more guy in Chicago, kick one of the other ones out. I mean, there's.
Yeah, you're so off base. No, I'm just stopping you now.
Okay.
There's three teams. Do you want most likely or least likely first?
Least likely.
San Francisco.
No.
I think they're done with Garoppolo.
No.
There's a good chance Sam Darnold ends up going to San Francisco. 2, New England. Cam Newton didn't work. Matthew Stafford is more like a Tom Brady. I could see that working. And for Stafford, that's not a bad position for you to go to. Go coach under Belichick.
Go see Belichick for a while.
But the team, and you've seen it everywhere, it's not an original idea by me, it's the Indianapolis Colts. They just lost Rivers. Get Stafford.
I think
you were right there.
I think Wentz is a better place in Indianapolis. I think Carson goes to Indianapolis. I like that fit a little bit better.
Indy is definitely looking for a quarterback, but I think Stafford, that would be a good fit for him if he ended up going there. It'd be interesting, and I think getting out of Detroit is going to be good for him. Stafford's another one. I love watching Stafford. I love his toughness. He gets injured a lot, but he's not afraid to take the hit either. Would just like to see him get a team around him. The one time he had any talent, he kind of leaned on it too much back when he had Calvin Johnson. And he threw it up to him a bit more than he should have and didn't pass the ball around. So the team really never developed like it could have. But I like Stafford.
So what did you feel about the Dwayne Haskins signing in Pittsburgh?
Oh, I forgot to put that in the notes because it just drives me nuts too bad. Why? Why are we giving him a chance already?
Again, yeah.
He has shown. I mean, I was at the Dwayne Haskins defender at the beginning of the year. I think he has. Maybe that's what it is. He just has a decent enough talent. It's just who believes they can get his head on straight. That didn't work for Johnny Manziel. Nobody could ever get his head on straight.
Yeah, give it to Mike Tomlin. See what Tomlin can do with him. It'll be interesting, but I mean, there's a few places I think Stafford could end up.
Speaking of Mike Tomlin and being able to get people's heads on straight, Martavius Bryant, former Steeler, signs with the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL. Good luck out there, as he has an indefinite suspension for multiple drug policy charges. Whatever.
Yeah, it hasn't played since 2018. It'll be interesting.
Do you think it's a big deal that Devontae Smith is not going to give out his height or weight because he doesn't want to show that he's only 142 pounds?
I think and what's funny is I read that a little bit ago was he's listed in the Crimson Tide's program as 6'1", 175.
No way. There's no way.
But the article made it it was quite funny and said it's giving him time to bulk up. to put some pounds on before the NFL, the national day for Crimson Tide to come in. But they did let him measure his hands, and I was thinking about that. 9 3/8 with his hands wide. So, I mean, that's still not super big hands, but he's only got a 78-inch wingspan.
He brings the football down.
Yeah, he gets up and gets it. He gets up and gets it. But, like you said, I'm only here to answer questions for the scouts. I'm only here to where I don't get fined.
I agree with David Johnson, who commented on our R&R Sports Report Facebook page. Detroit is just like the Houston situation. Detroit did nothing with Stafford or Megatron. Hope Stafford does good somewhere else. I totally agree. I think Stafford's a great guy, and it was so fun to watch with him and Megatron, but the team just never did anything around him, kept giving him some of the worst coaches out there. So, yes, I agree with David. I'm rooting for Stafford. Last thing we're going to talk about here in our football hour, because we're going to just hold off on the Super Bowl until next week. We're just going to hit all that next week. But I want your thoughts on the new Pro Bowl format.
I have not read it. I'm not 100%. I know
so I don't know all the
game things.
I don't know all the details, and it might even be going on right now. But they're going to do, it's a week-long celebration where you're just going to see different players and celebrities play Madden. And then the day of, I believe, or whatever, Sunday, they're going to have two different people. I don't know who's playing the games or if they're just simulating it and letting the computer play. But they're going to do the Pro Bowl with everyone that got voted in on Madden. And then they're going to have the update on the Madden game where then you can get the AFC and NFC Pro Bowl rosters or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that. I wanted to look at that there today.
So
that'll be a tomorrow thing. I'll look. And
obviously, in a non-COVID world, this is not the only thing I would want to see. But I would rather watch a Madden version of the Pro Bowl than what we get now, as far as the game goes.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
But I want the skills competitions. Yep. I want goofy stuff. I would rather watch.
No, I don't want to watch them play dodgeball anymore. Come on.
Give me the
real skills. Yeah, give me the skills things they used to do.
I miss the Justin Tucker tic-tac-toe field goal challenge.
That one was good.
But I'm talking. I want complete goofy stuff because we already know Aaron Rodgers is going to be a guest host on Jeopardy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get that to happen on Pro Bowl weekend with 3 NFL superstars that made the Pro Bowl as his contestants. Let's do some other weird games. Let's have them do go-karts. Just a week-long celebration in Hawaii. Go have fun. And don't worry about playing a darn football game. Just let's go celebrate and do silly stuff. I mean, now they're doing that stuff with Nickelodeon where they got to broadcast an NFL game. So go have stuff that you only show on Nickelodeon where these different players are getting slimed and stuff. I like the stuff around the Pro Bowl way more than the actual Pro Bowl game. And I like that at least for this year, they're making it a week-long celebration. And I think that's what they should do.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with the doing the challenges because I do miss those. When you saw when few of them finally came out, Peyton Manning out there running, throwing the ball, throwing how deep they could go, it just brings something back into it.
Why don't we have 40-yard dashes between, Tyreek Hill's on the Super Bowl, so he wouldn't be there. But some of the fastest receivers out there. I like that the skills challenge, they do have their hands and stuff. But why aren't we having these races to figure out who to show who's the fastest guy in the NFL?
Right. They used to do that kind of thing, Go back to when it was, a long time ago, well before your time and my time, when they used to have, I'd bring up the man, Hank Aaron passing away last week, but the skills challenge, them doing the old home run derby, have Harmon Killebrew hitting home runs against Hank Aaron. See some of those names, doing things that are part of the game, but it's not, okay, we're not going to crunch each other. We're not going to beat up on each other and hit them because they don't do it as it is now.
How about we have the Baltimore Ravens offensive line versus, who cares, the Chicago Bears defensive line in a hot dog eating contest? Let's just get goofy with it.
Yeah.
I would rather do anything than watch the actual Pro Bowl game. So while I'm not going to sit there and watch Madden all week, I like that they're doing it for a week-long celebration ending in a Madden game instead of watching guys not try.
Right, and that's the tough
the Pro Bowl.
And that makes no sense why they would not show a little bit of something.
Right, but you are listening to the R&R Sports Report right here on KLCZ 88.9 FM Lewiston. It is still 32 degrees outside. You can check us out on the R&R Sports Report page on both Facebook and YouTube and comment. That's where you can comment live like David Johnson and John Bruni and Haven Morfin have done so far. Haley and Robert Luft as well. Also, make sure to check out the KLCZ Facebook page as well. They haven't been posting too much just because we started our own thing and I got talking to you about that today. So go check that out. We're going to be linking to them more often and probably streaming to it once I get that information.
Hopefully get that figured out and we'll start streaming and doing it all over the place. So it'll be there. It'll be nice. So
I'm getting nodded from there. I'm sorry, Seth. All right. You give me the information.
Yeah, just go ahead and message him right now.
Right.
Send it to him now. We'll add it on there right now. LCSC Athletics KLCZ 88.9 is underwritten by a part of the LCSC Athletics, bringing LCSC NAIA ranked baseball, volleyball, track and field, basketball, volleyball, tennis, and much, much more to the LC Valley. More information can be found at our website at lcwarriors.com.
All right, so that is it for football. Our second to last.
Sure it is.
Well, for now. Second to last football hour for a while. We'll probably get back into football hours as far as like the draft and stuff goes, but
we did miss a major name in Detroit.
What did we forget?
Jason Hanson.
Who cares about a kicker?
Jason Hanson, come on, man. He was a Cougar. He was.
What do you want to say about Jason Hanson before we move on?
He was unbelievable. He could kick that ball a long way.
Did he retire or something?
Yeah, he did. But all of his entire career.
He's a kicker, so he'll probably be back.
I think he's like 55 now.
It doesn't matter. What somebody misses 3 kicks, they're going to ask Hanson. How old is Vinatieri?
He's younger than Hanson. Hanson,
really?
I was to say, because when I met Jason Hanson when I was a junior in high school. I remember he came down to our Young Life. And he, at that time, was a senior the year I was so he's got to be 51, 52, because I'll be 47 in a couple months.
And David Johnson, right? Kickers' life do matter. I apologize.
Thank you, David Johnson.
All right, I'm ready to talk LCSU. We got actual news.
Let's go. All right.
Let's start with the men who had a 2-game set with Yellowstone Christian College over the weekend on Friday and Saturday. And they were able to come away with the victory in both games, winning the first game 79-67, where friend of the podcast, Tristan Bradley, leads the way. He scores 23 points and gets 10 rebounds for another double-double for that guy. I need to go back and count how many he has already this season. And Damek Mitchell also having a great game, 22 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. And LC does a nice job where they kind of rotated their roster a little bit, where we saw some guys on Friday and not on Saturday and vice versa. And on Saturday, they get the job done again, 62-40. Rough shooting day for both teams, really. LC went 1 of 12 from the three-point line in the first half. But they did hold Yellowstone Christian to just 24% shooting on the day. Tristan Bradley with 9 points and 9 rebounds, just missing out on another double-double. But Hodges Bailey leads the way there with 18 points. So the men now at 12-1, top 5 team in the NAIA. We already know that all they have to do is win a best of 3 against College of Idaho at the end of the month to win the CCC, because this year has been weird. But this week, they will be heading out to Seattle. I have a couple of the basketball players on my sports communications class, and they're both there in line to give out their please excuse our absence because we have to go to Seattle to play basketball notes. Wednesday and Thursday, both at 6 p.m. Against Seattle Pacific. You can check out how to watch that game on lcwarriors.com. I've been able to watch bits and pieces of these games lately because when I remember what time it is, it's really simple. You just go on that website and follow some directions, and they will get you to be able to watch or listen to the games. The women played Seattle Pacific this last weekend, and they ended up with a split. Fantastic game on Friday where they won 68-67. Jansen Edmondson and Kiara Burlage both lead the way with 19 points. And this game was close all the way. LC never led by more than 4. I think Seattle Pacific once had a lead of 8, but that was very rare. It was very back and forth. Abby Farmer hits a layup with 2:54 to go in the fourth quarter to give the Warriors that 68-67 lead, and then no more points were scored in nearly 3 minutes. Great defense by the Warriors, but they do fall short on Saturday, losing 63-72. Burlage led the way with 25 points and 8 rebounds, shoots 8 of 13 from the field. And Edmondson and Peyton Souvenir both reached double digits as well. Just kind of fell short early, and we're not able to get back into that game. So the women fall to 6-3 on the year. Once we finally get another NAIA rankings, they're going to be pretty close to that top 25. Seattle Pacific's a very good team. But they, again, are all down to their best-of-3 series with College of Idaho at the end of the month, which we will get to. And they will play on Friday and Saturday this week. Friday is at 6 p.m. Saturday is at 1 p.m. They'll be taking on MSU Billings. And I didn't have a chance to look out their information. But good luck to both teams, both on the road this week. But it's nice that they are still being able to fill that schedule and get some reps in before the big games.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to watch a little bit of those tomorrow night, try to stream it at home when I get home. But I'm excited to watch, like we talked last week, the men's team will play Northwest Nazarene the following on the 6th, and that's where True's playing. We follow True as a Clarkson. It'll be nice to watch True take on Jake and Bradley and bring back some of those golden throne times. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to watch and to start following, because now's the time when I finally get involved with college basketball. It's almost, we're down to about one more month of full push in the college slate. So I'm excited to start watching a little bit more LC basketball now that football's almost over.
Right, absolutely. But we do have more news for LCSC sports. How about Friday? It hasn't been canceled yet, so that's good. But the cross-country team is still set to be doing the Bushnell Invitational over there in Oregon. And the women's tennis team, we said last week, didn't have their schedule out. The tennis team, they now do. They will be facing Montana here at home at 1:30. That is also on Friday. Men's team is currently set to start February 14th when they'll take on Whitworth at home. And then the track team schedule came out, and they will start with the Banana Belt Invitational on February 19th. So we're starting to get back to where we have sports to talk about, which is really, really nice. And it's good timing since our football hour is going away, and we're going to need to fill 2 hours. So what about some high school sports, Kurt?
Lots of high school going on around the area. We'll start with Lewiston. The boys had a kind of a rough week as they split this week. They lost pretty big their last Tuesday as we were coming off the air. They were finishing up, lose to Lake City 73-44. But they were able to bounce back. They're in Sandpoint, knocked off Sandpoint by 13, 59-46. The girls this week, it's just been a struggle this year. And I know Carly Wilson changing things up there, new coach for Lewis and her alma mater, but things kind of get off to a rough and rocky start. Last Tuesday, they get trounced by Lake City, 52-17. Absolutely no offense. Couldn't get a ball to fall down whatsoever. Lowest point total of the season for the Lady Bengals, only scoring 17. And then they lost their 6th straight to Sandpoint on Saturday, 50-40. So kind of a rough weekend for those ball clubs. But The one big one for us, and if you notice, Randy and I, if you're not if you're just listening to us on KLCZ, you're not watching the stream, but Randy and I are supporting our colors as this week would have been Golden Throne week, and both schools are still doing stuff with Golden Throne. Make sure you check out stuff, and it's a huge fundraiser for both high schools to make money and raise money for different charities. So make sure you go and visit both Clarkson High School's Facebook page. I know they're doing stuff on there. They're also doing stuff on the main page for the high school through Clarkson School District. And I know the same thing going on with the Lewis and Bengals for their things. So make sure that you are getting on there, help donate, because that's a big thing that they're missing out this year, because a lot of the ticket gate for Golden Throne that should have been here at LCSC goes to donations. So as you can tell tonight, I'm wearing last year's shirt, the 2020 Pirates of the Caribbean, the Bantams of the Caribbean. So we were, you and I decided we got to dress up in our school colors and support these guys.
So we can wear it anyways.
Yep. And
it's also where I learned, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, that our main camera has a color issue, and I look blue instead of purple. But
you're blue most of the time anyway, right?
Oh. I'm a Jets fan.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, but one of the other big teams right now that has looked unbelievable is the Lapwai girls. 17-0 right now, 12-0 in conference. Right now they're number one, but they had to come back against Prairie last Tuesday or Thursday and came back to win that one 60-44. But Prairie does snap Lapwai's streak of scoring 70-plus games, 70-plus points in a game, as they just couldn't get the easy shots in the first three quarters. They couldn't get the layups to fall, but they were able to battle back and knock off Prairie there on Thursday. But hats off to Prairie. They're number 3 in the 1A Division I state standings, and their only 2 losses are against Lapwai. It's going to be a tough division. Lapwai number 1 at 17-0, Prairie at 14-2, and you look at the number 2 team, and that is Murtaugh, and they're 14-3 out of the Twin Falls area. So, hats off to these basketball teams, and I think it's going to come down to, again, Lapwai and Prairie in that 1A Division I state title game.
There's looking at it that way for sure. Let's look at the NCAA now. Not a lot changing at the top. Gonzaga 1, Baylor 2, Villanova 3. Michigan up 3 spots to 4, even though they're in the middle of a 2-week quarantine session. Mm-hmm. And Texas was number 5, but let me get into some scores today. As number 24, Oklahoma beat number 5 Texas today, 80-79. How crazy is Kentucky this year? Kentucky falls to Alabama 70-59 today to drop to 5-10.
Yeah,
on the season.
It's just weird to watch that happen. I mean, they weren't favored to win against Alabama.
No, Alabama's
but it's just weird seeing the changes, changing of the guard almost, of some of these teams that are coming in. You look at Gonzaga; they lose a vote this week. Give one more to Baylor this week, just because they only had one. They only had one game this week, and I mean it's a little tough. But yeah, what about Duke? I mean, looking at Duke, right, and that, but the storyline in Duke this week is Coach K, the way he talks to a Duke reporter, a college student reporter. I think it'd be a little bit different if it wasn't a college student reporter, but if you look at the way he talked to them, I know he apologized finally today. I know the article came out, but I'm impressed watching what Alabama's doing. They've climbed 9 spots. You look at Florida also climbing 10 spots. There's a kind of a changing of the guard of who is normally in the side of the game.
It's definitely going to make it impossible to do backups.
Yeah. You just don't
Usually
know.
You have your go-tos, and you just don't have that this year.
Yeah. And then
there'll be a lot of Gonzagas in the Northwest, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then you look at Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee's just kind of fallen off this over the last couple of weeks, losing their last 2 to Florida and Missouri. I mean, it's almost anybody's game, it seems like this year. But, how much do we blame?
Oh, you blame COVID a lot, obviously. You don't be able to finish last year and then don't really get to have a normal off season at all. A lot of these schedules getting thrown together week of. How many times do we talk about Gonzaga and the games scheduled for next week, and then they didn't happen, and then other games would happen?
Well, look at what the Gonzaga women did. Their game got canceled against BYU on Saturday. Oh, guess what? We're going to go to Portland and play. That wasn't on the schedule. And then all of a sudden they pick up that game. And it's just crazy to see, like a day notice, and they go and play. It's crazy. So Gonzaga now, again, number 1 in the country, 15-0, 6-0 in conference play. They just kind of roll all over Pacific. It wasn't even a game. I think I texted you, and I was like, look at this. So they're up 50, and then they ended up only winning by, 44 points, I think.
Yeah, you helped me not have to care about turning it on.
Yeah, it was crazy. But, Drew Timme, still the man to do, 28 points. Gonzaga was up 31 points at the break. But I think the bigger number for me is looking at how many rebounds that Gonzaga had. They had 50 rebounds, 38 of them on the defensive side. I mean, that's just nuts to have that many in a ball game, especially on the collegiate level. And the other stat that I saw this week, it was a great one, but Gonzaga scoring 94 points per game, averaging 94 points, and close to
the offense is too good.
The next closest is Iowa at 90.7. So I'm excited for that one. Their next game is going to be on Thursday. They're taking on University of San Diego, 6 p.m. tip. I'm assuming that must be going to be on KHQ. I haven't heard. It should be. But the Saturday's game is going to be against Pepperdine. Look for Pepperdine to be a tough game, and they play Gonzaga tough all the time. That is a 5 p.m. tip on Saturday. That one you can catch on ESPN2.
Gonzaga by 15.
Yeah, but I tell you what, though, Pepperdine has always played Gonzaga tough. Same as St. Mary's. Those are the two teams that you worry about if you're a Gonzaga fan.
Gonzaga women, as you had stated earlier, postponed their game with BYU, ended up playing Portland, winning that one 79-61. That was played on Sunday. They've now won 12 straight games, 13-2 overall, and now ranked 18th in the rankings, number 1 in the West Coast Conference. They've also got 2 games this week. On Thursday, they take on Pacific, and Saturday, they take on St. Mary's. So both Gonzaga teams playing absolutely fantastic. You got to think both of them are pretty much locked into the tournament. That is not the case, however, for the Washington State men, who finally started playing competition, and it's showing. They have now lost 5 games in a row, have dropped to 9-6 after losing back-to-back games here this last weekend to Utah and Colorado. Neither of them particularly close at all. They will take on Colorado again tomorrow at 6 p.m. That'll be on ESPNU. And then they'll take on Washington on Sunday. That is at 5 o'clock on the Pac-12 network. Do they win any of those?
I don't think so. Not if they keep going to Bonton. He just does not. Yes, he is leading the team in points and minutes played, but the way he just does not look comfortable shooting the ball. And I probably catch a lot of flack from a lot of people that are Coug fans, but you gotta get the ball around to others. You gotta work it into Williams a little bit more. You gotta work it into Rodman. Get it. And I know he's just come back from being hurt. You had the 4 guys on the COVID protocol. Our buddy Chatfield was in that same group, so he hasn't had any play time. But I know you always want to push through the main guy of your team. But when your main guy of your team looks so off balance, and he just does not look like I don't think he's the same as what Ellaby was last couple of years at all. But I think it's tough to watch this team now, who I was really high on, going 9-0, and now all of a sudden, or 8-0, and then now all of a sudden they've just fallen off because they're not distributing the ball like they should. I like the tempo they play. They're just not distributing the ball around. The Washington State Cougar ladies currently sitting fifth in the Pac-12, 2.5 games back of Stanford, who they will get a chance to play tomorrow night, 6:30 tip time, but lost to number 13 Oregon 58-50 last Friday, but came back and beat Oregon State. That was a crazy finish. I watched that one. They come back and beat Oregon State 77-75 in double overtime. It was a 58-58 game at the end of regulations, but our main player there, Layer Walker, hits that jump shot with 37 seconds left in double overtime. And then the defense stepped up, but didn't block out as well as they did, as OSU had the chance to score 3 different times. And OSU missed all 3 shots in the final 37 seconds. You just couldn't get a defensive rebound until the very last one. But just kind of the same way. They've given up a couple of hard losses to some ranked teams. So hopefully this is going to be kind of a redemption, and hopefully they can knock off Stanford. But we're talking about the number 6 team in the nation. It'll be tough for those ladies. So
yeah,
be interested.
At least try to get a split.
Well, and both of
right.
both of their games are going to be against Stanford. They got Wednesday and Friday. So, do you make a point split? Do you make a big statement and win both of them? But it'll be interesting to see as those will be up at Beasley on again tomorrow night and Friday night.
Then you look at the Idaho Vandals. They neither the men or the women played last week. So if you look at their upcoming schedule, the men and the women will both play a doubleheader against Weber State. The men will play at home Thursday and Saturday, and the women will go to Weber State Thursday and Saturday. Women currently 7-5, 6-2 in conference, 3 games behind Idaho State. And the Idaho Vandals, the men, still trying to look for that first win of the year, 0-11. A couple games against Weber State, try to get up there. But let's move to the NBA because I finally am excited to talk about basketball.
Just
currently, not just that, but currently, at halftime, my New York Knicks leading the Utah Jazz, who are 12-4 on the year, 15-46. And you got Katie and Nick.
I was to say, do you wish that you would have drafted them? Do you wish I would have left
over
them
Detroit? Absolutely over Detroit. Detroit's been terrible. Cleveland's been okay, so I've been okay getting them. But this week, Robert's teams went 19-25. My teams went 29-23. Yes, a lot more games played by my teams with all of the COVID stuff going on. So currently, Robert's teams do have a better winning percentage, but we don't go by winning percentage. We go by wins. I got 124 wins to 127 losses. Robert's teams have 120 to 119 losses. So technically I have a 2-game lead, even though my teams are performing not that great. But I'm taking it. I don't care. I haven't led this whole thing yet. So I have my first lead, and I'm okay with it. But we also want to bring up, this is the anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death. We've heard it all over sports media. It was a shocking thing to hear about last year when it went on, and obviously he's had a huge impact on the sport. And just seeing these stories again is just as difficult as it was all this happened last year.
Yeah, it's tough to envision somebody that I would have thought would have made a heck of a coach a little bit later on in his career. I know he was focusing on his kids and everything in retirement, but it was tough to see the memories come up again and go through all again. But our prayers and thoughts and prayers go out to his wife and this tough time, and we all support that. So one other score update, a couple other score updates right now. Atlanta ended up winning against the Clippers 108-99 tonight, and with 17 seconds left to go, Houston leads 107-88 over Washington.
So technically we'll be even on those two.
Yeah, so we'll split again. So
that's okay. All right, let's get into some baseball.
Oh,
And this is going to take most of the rest of the show, as the Hall of Fame news is really interesting. But first, my team.
your team. It's like I posted. Your team has been all over the place. I mean, what a time to be a Yankees fan, I guess, huh?
It's really interesting. So they trade the Pittsburgh Pirates for Jameson Taillon, who was injured last year, did not pitch at all. But he's a very good player, former teammate of Garrett Cole, was the number 2 pick in the 2010 draft. And I should have made this my trivia question to you, but I didn't do one this week. But Bryce Harper went first, and Manny Machado went third. So around good company. Should be ready on opening day after he had his second Tommy John surgery.
That is the second one, so it'll be interesting.
And the Yankees give up 4 prospects. None of them were really top notch. I think Miguel Yajur was the 15th ranked prospect in the Yankees organization, and he was the best one that the Yankees gave up. Didn't really give up much. But they bring in Taillon to now make a projected rotation for the New York Yankees to be Garrett Cole, who's fantastic, but is in that talks with Scherzer and stuff about doctoring the baseballs and that new issue that's going on in MLB. There's always some kind of a tabloid deal going on, some kind of a controversy. So you got Garrett Cole, then you get Jameson Taillon, who did not pitch at all last year. You get Domingo Germán, who did not pitch at all last year because of his domestic violence issues. Was finishing off his 81-game suspension. I believe he might have a couple of days left. He might be activated, but he might miss the first week. You have Luis Severino, who might come back in June or July off of his Tommy John surgery, who did not pitch at all last year. And then you have Corey Kluber, who they signed last week, who pitched 1 inning. So there's a chance.
I think he's the most interesting one out of the whole group. I really do. Just can he get back to what he looked like when he was playing with Cleveland?
Yes.
That's what I'm intrigued with. If he can come back and pitch like he did when he was in Cleveland, go ahead, write it down. I hate to see what the Yankees are going to do and what they'll look like in September.
The Yankees are doing something really interesting with their starting rotation that I find compelling. Now, they did trade Ottavino to the Red Sox, which is a weird trade for the Yankees and Red Sox to make a deal. But that does open up some space underneath that luxury task. There's no salary cap in Major League Baseball. But once you go past a certain point, then you have to pay even more to all these other teams. And the Yankees have been dead set on being underneath that cap. So they trade Ottavino, which some believe is for them to go after Tanaka, who is getting offers to go back to Japan. And it's looking more and more likely because they're offering him multiple years that he's going to do that. Or just to go out and get another pitcher in general. But right now, what they're doing is you have Garrett Cole, you have your top guy. Then you have all of these question marks. How are Taillon and Severino going to do after Tommy John? How is Corey Kluber going to do after all of his injuries? Is Domingo Germán going to be mentally ready? Or should he even be a major league player after all of the allegations he went through? And then is Jordan Montgomery ready to step up? He's probably going to be in the rotation until Severino comes back. And then you have 3 or 4 very top-notch prospects that are waiting in the rings. And can one of them take over one of these positions? So there's a lot of talent for the Yankees, but they only have that one top-notch, no doubt, player in Garrett Cole as far as pitching goes. So it could be fantastic, or it could all come crumbling down and just none of these question marks work. But if you're the Yankee fan, you're just hoping for 2 or 3 to work.
Yeah. And like I said, I think out of all of those, the biggest one for me is going to be that Kluber one. I think if they can keep him healthy, I think they make a big push and going to be that team back in the, in the AL championship.
Some extra moves here that have happened this week. Brad Hand goes to the Nationals on a 1-year deal. Great bullpen player.
Yeah, I wasn't shocked on that one, but it was.
Padres signed Jerison Profar because, finally the Padres did something this offseason. Man, I've been waiting for the Padres to do anything.
Yeah.
That team is scary. Astros do keep Michael Brantley on a 2-year, $32 million deal. That's kind of surprising because it looked like he was going to go with George Springer to Toronto.
I'm wondering why that came out, and then all of a sudden it was a kind of rescinded really quick. As I had messaged you as soon as I saw that, and then I don't understand.
Which one came out?
As soon as, because I had seen a report that said Michael Brantley, he's heading to Toronto to join with Springer.
Everyone believed it.
And then within an hour or two, it was just like, no, he's signing here. So I don't know.
Astros probably bumped up their offer, would be my guess. So, again, Brantley stays with the Astros, but the Blue Jays made a bunch of moves. They get George Springer, Kirby Yates, and Tyler Chatwood, and they just made a deal today. Let me look it up real quick. But Springer gets 6 years, $150 million, which, once again, as a Yankee fan, makes me so happy for what we got DJ LeMahieu for.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts to see what happened. And then
Blue Jays got Simeon.
Yeah, Simeon today. That was the major one that came across this evening just before we came on here. So,
and then the Philadelphia Phillies are going to keep JT Realmuto on a 5-year deal. Fantastic catcher. Probably the best catcher in baseball right now, at least offensively.
Hands down.
At least offensively.
Hands down. And we didn't get to it last week, but did you see Yachty? Yachty pitched to 4 batters there in the Puerto Rican League and gave up 1 hit, had 1 strikeout, but the 1 hit was a home run. But who would have figured Yachty to throw an inning of relief here in Puerto Rico? But are you shocked? Maybe this is more of the comment. Are you shocked that the things are not moving as quickly with free agency? It just seems to be kind of lulling around right now. It's not as active as normal. I mean, Seattle hasn't. Go ahead. I'm bringing up Seattle, but Seattle hasn't made a lot of moves. You haven't seen much out of Kansas City. You haven't seen much out of Texas. Some of these teams are not making a ton of moves right now. When in the past I've seen over the last few years, it's been a very active free agency.
Yeah, again, the winter meetings the last few years have been a little disappointing as far as how many moves get made. Usually there's a lot more trades happening then. Free agencies kind of got pushed back, where players are waiting till they report to sign. Some wait until reporting's already started before they sign. So it's a little slower. But yeah, it is. It does seem like the Yankees are making a lot of moves, Toronto's making a lot of moves, and the Padres are making a lot of moves. And you're not hearing a ton elsewhere. And some of those smaller market teams, like you said, with like the Mariners and the Rangers, you're just not hearing anything. So that is a little interesting, but it's been a weird year.
And I think maybe they're just all holding off just because of health reasons and how much money people lost over, the NCAA, how much money they lost just in not having March Madness. They lost. What was the number? I remember almost like $600 million or something that was lost out during that time. So I'm wondering if it's got to be the same idea. I mean, there was no fans in pretty much any of the stadiums for Major League Baseball. I just can't imagine.
Before we get to the last 2 things I want to talk about with baseball, are you surprised that they did not keep the universal DH rule? I'm not surprised they didn't keep the playoffs.
I was shocked. I like the idea of it, but
and it was the player union that
it was the players union. But on the other hand, we go back to the same conversation we've had over and over and over. Baseball's about history, and that's the thing. I think they want to see that happen. And
that leads us to our last 2 stories. Obviously, earlier this week we lost Hank Aaron. It seems like we're losing a famous baseball player once a week. More. To me, still the home run king.
I agree.
He is the RBI leader and total base leader all time in the major leagues. And I love Barry Bonds as a player. Should not have the record. No. And here's why I still think Hank Aaron is the home run record. Here's your trivia question that I think you'll be able to get. and I ask people this all the time. How many home runs did Babe Ruth hit?
714.
How many home runs did Hank Aaron hit?
740. No, yeah, 744.
Right? Well, you're close on the two numbers being the same. 755.
755.
How many home runs did Barry Bonds hit?
I don't care.
But do you have any clue?
I was like 780 or something like that.
762.
Yeah.
You talk to most people, especially if you bring it up during baseball season when we're all really thinking about baseball, and you ask somebody that's really into baseball, those three questions.
I mean,
they're going to get 714 is iconic.
Yeah, 715 is the one I remember. I mean, growing up, and I've talked about this many times. I mean, we come from an age that we didn't get to see a lot of those players like the Mickey Mantle that I would have loved to watch Mickey Mantle play and would have loved to watch those guys. And one of the first memories I ever remember of baseball was, seeing Hank Aaron, but watching the Atlanta Braves and that, because I grew up, that was the only team that got televised around here, was watching them. And the memory, you could tell me any other swing about Hank Aaron, what he did, but the one you remember the most is watching 715 barely clear the wall, and then him getting mobbed between second and third base. I mean, they've replayed that video so much over the last week, but that's the only memory I remember of Hank Aaron, watching him play. I would have loved to watch him to attack different batters and all that. And I know I watched Dan Patrick the other day, and they talked about him. They replayed a 2019 interview with Dan Patrick and him, and they talked about, do you remember your first home run? Do you remember, who was the biggest person you hit off of, and what kind of pitch it was? And for him to retell the stories of, just the first one to the last one, and the stuff that he had to go through, I wish I would have got to see more of his career. I mean, right. It's tough to visualize, but yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a ton. Baseball is the game that is all about the history. It's all about the history, and don't affect it.
And that brings up the Hall of Fame today, where they announced that they will have no new Hall of Famers this year. It is the first time since 2013 that no player has reached the 75% mark. And what was it? First year since 1960 that we will have 0 Hall of Famers, because there is no Veterans Committee votes this year.
No.
So there will be nobody new inducted. That means we still will have a ceremony this year, because we did not have one last year. So Derek Jeter, Larry Walker, Ted Simmons, and Marvin Miller will still be the only 4 names that will go.
And that's
Cooper.
And this is only like I said, only the 7th time since elections first started in 1936. So I mean, it's a big deal, for these guys not to make the 75% threshold.
So let's look at what happened today. You had 14 people not turn in the ballot. How did they lose their ballot, right? I mean, they don't, but they should. If you don't fill one in.
You would think so, but I mean, I doubt.
Dumb. Absolutely dumb. You get a ballot, I'm filling it out. Kurt Schilling was the closest one, 71.1% of the votes. He missed it by 16 votes. And then he asked to be taken off the ballot because he feels rigged and ripped off.
So my question is on this is how many of these writers were around to watch him now? I'm curious, and we never know. There are only a few people let you know that they have a ballot. I'd like to know the age range of some of the.
You got to think all of them have been around, at least being a teenager when he was playing.
Right.
He wasn't that good. Kurt Schilling was not that good. He was good, but he's not a Hall of Famer, and that's where I get all. I just laugh about this. He was a fine pitcher, a very good pitcher. He's not a Hall of Famer. And him off the field and the stuff he's done since his career has made him show that he's not a Hall of Famer personally either, which is why I always laugh when people go Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens should never see the Hall of Fame for cheating baseball, even though 80% of baseball in the 90s did it. The only reason Barry Bonds did it is because he saw what Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa did and went, I'm way better than them. Watch this. I'll do what they do and do it way better. Now, I don't think he's a home run leader for that.
Yeah.
But is he a Hall of Famer? Absolutely. He was a great player before the steroids. He was a better player without it. Roger Clemens was a great pitcher in the 90s, took the steroids to extend his career. Curt Schilling's just an idiot, a straight idiot, and an okay pitcher. And the fact that he is now so Schilling, Bonds, and Clemens, I bring those up because those are the top 3 vote getters, and they're all supposed to be on their last ballot next year. Their last chance to get in with the players before they go to the Veterans Committee, which Curt Schilling believes he's going to have a better chance with. So just take me off the ballot. And I'll get in with the Veterans Committee or whatever. I don't see Bonds and Clemens getting in with the Veterans Committee. No. So they have one more year, but now you have Schilling's off the books. So that's one less name you have to deal with if they do take him off the ballot. Do you see anybody getting voted in next year?
Well, you look at those names that are on that list that are not Schilling's, Bonds, or Clemens. You look at Scott Rowland, Todd Helton, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, and I listened to them argue back and forth. And I don't remember if it was Brian Kinney or who it was that they were arguing on MLB Network. When I got home, they were talking that Jeff Kent, kind of got shunned in the 2000 MVP race. He should have had that there. I think Jeff Kent gets a little bit of a push.
He's a big push.
But they were arguing over between Scott Rowland and Jeff Kent. I mean, yeah, you got a second. I don't either. I think, Jeff Kent had one great season. So I don't see either one. I don't think anybody of these people of this group makes it next year. No, I not with how they voted.
Unless the writers were going, we're going to make a statement about Bonds and Clemens until their last year, and then we will put them in. It's the only way I can see them getting 14% more. So here are the names, real quickly. I just want a yes or no question or yes or no answer to these names. These are the players that will be on their first ballot next year. Okay. They will be eligible for the first time next year.
Okay.
Tim Lincecum.
Ooh. I would say no. I would say no. I mean, just because he didn't pitch long enough.
He was fantastic for a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Fell off a cliff.
Right.
Ryan Howard.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he held that Phillies organization for a long time. I don't think he put up near the numbers he probably needed to get there, but I think he's going to be one of those ones that's going to be. He'll be between 65 and 70%. I don't think he'll be.
And if you ask any Philly fan, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Prince Fielder.
Prince. Darling, no.
I agree. Justin Morneau. One of those Scott Rowland players.
Yeah, but
good, not great.
Yeah, I was just saying, but look where he played at. If he was in a bigger market, maybe. Minnesota just not that big market, so no.
All right. Before we get to these big ones, a couple more. I don't think so, but we'll see. Jonathan Papelbon.
No.
Joe Nathan.
No.
Good closer's closer's not great.
The market kills them. I mean, depends on where they play.
And then the big four.
Okay.
And the first two are the closest to me. Mark Teixeira. 400 home runs, 1,300 RBIs, got a 268.
Yeah, I think if the average was up maybe 10 more points and he was closer to 500, maybe.
He'll be interesting. Jimmy Rollins.
I didn't even think about that. I think I would put him over Ryan Howard.
Oh, yeah.
But, I would say yes. He would probably be one of the closer ones for that ballot.
He'll be close. but I say no.
I don't know if he'll get 75%, but I think he's going to be in the 60s.
And then the big two names that both have their own issues. David Ortiz. He's a DH.
He's a DH, but how many years did we look for Edgar to do the same thing?
Yep.
He's the same thing in the 90s with the doping, and he even said he'd taken stuff. No, he won't make it the first year. Maybe he makes a strong push in years 2 and 3, but I would say no in the first year.
Well, if we're saying no one else gets in, this is your best chance.
Right.
Alex Rodriguez.
No. As much as he was a Mariner.
He's 100% a Hall of Famer. He took steroids like everyone else.
Right.
Just stop.
Yeah, but then you're asterisking again. You're putting an asterisk against.
No, you just put it on his plaque.
Yeah.
Admitted to taking steroids.
Yeah. That'd be the same thing with Ortiz. Do you do the same thing with him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's part of the history. The Hall of Fame are the best players in the history of baseball. The steroids were a big part of history.
All right.
Amphetamines were a big part of the 80s. Those guys got in. All right.
Yeah, how many of those guys sat in the clubhouse drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, or how many of them went into the dugout smoking a cigarette?
So it'll be interesting. We got none this year. We might not get any next year.
Yeah,
getting the 75%.
I don't know.
All right, let's get to the sports that don't get a lot of airtime. Unfortunately, they're not going to get a ton of airtime with us, as the Hall of Fame kind of took us for a loop and changed things. Like we said, Joel Damon came back, shot 1 under on the weekend, missed the cut.
Missed the cut by 1, I think it was, too. The cut was
a couple. I thought it was 4 under for the cut.
I thought it was -2.
Definitely, he was up and down in the second round. The first round, I want to say he parred each of the first 12 holes, maybe the first 11 holes. That's how Gino tweeted about it. And then was able to get a few birdies in there to finish 3 under on the day. Si-Woo Kim is the winner of the American Express. He goes 23 under, makes $1.2 million. But shout out to Patrick Cantley. He goes 11 under on Sunday.
Yeah.
A 61 to finish 1 shot off the lead. Great push by Cantley. It's a Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines next week.
I love that course. I can't wait to watch that one.
Dustin Poirier ends up beating Conor McGregor to show that we know nothing about the UFC. Why are you?
Because I thought about it a little bit longer, and we were talking about it at school a couple days longer. He's coming out of retirement. I'm like, okay, got a point there. Poirier trying to make a statement from 2 years earlier. And I kind of, was it 2? I thought it was only 2 or 3 years. But we talked about it there at school, and one of the guys just made me just decide, that might be just a ploy to get him back in. And so I changed my idea.
Poirier had a fantastic game plan of all those leg kicks that just basically killed the front leg of Conor McGregor, and he had no power. I'm not a big UFC fan, but I watched this fight. It was entertaining. I don't understand the hate for Conor now. He's mellowed off so much.
Yeah, you looked at
since the Floyd Mayweather stuff.
Yeah, you looked at their greetings each other and their weigh-ins and all that.
He has so much respect, and he gets so much respect from these other fighters because, yes, he's a loudmouth, but he knows how to sell fights.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. And he goes way over the top with it, but you can tell he respects the sport. He respects the other fighters.
How much money do both those guys make?
Probably a lot.
I never did hear.
But maybe not as much as Conor makes with his whiskey.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Proper number 12.
PBA, like we said, returned with the West region, and Chris Kelso, who's out of Colorado, first time ever making a show, had won 2 regionals in his life, ends up
and he's only
going into the region and making the 5 seed, and puts on a clinic. His first 3 games where he beats Darren Tang, Jacob Buttroff, and then another young Wesley Lowe, who's another YouTuber.
Mm-hmm.
He goes out and shoots 269, 268, 254, which is a 791 series if you put those 3 games together, which is fantastic on a house shot, where that might be the leader here in the Valley. We get a few 800 series in the
Yeah.
Valley on house shots, but 791 would definitely be in the top 10 in the Valley that year.
Oh yeah.
He does that on a sport shot
And the thing about
on
him,
TV.
yeah.
Is first time ever.
And then the thing about him is he was only a part-time player. He's not out there every week, and but I think he had a little bit of an edge. I mean, he's in the bowling building every day. He's a mechanic. He understands the lane breakdowns, how things move, and just to watch him
But you
throw
can have
was
lane breakdown, but
crazy.
it's way different on TV.
Oh yeah,
with the
especially
lights.
cameras and lights. But just
Belmonte
watching,
brought that up. But I do think he got a little bit of an edge on this take because there was not a crowd.
right?
If he goes out there and he's facing Darren Tagg in that first match, and he's out there and he's throwing 5 or 6 in a row to start that match, and that crowd gets into it, I don't know how he handles that.
Right.
I hope we get to see that because he was really fun to watch. Very mellow, cool-headed, fantastic bowler. It was a great story. But Anthony Simonson does end up winning. He was the number 1 seed going in. Best bowler in the sport right now, behind Belmo maybe. He wins 279 to 205 over Keslow, who finishes second. Next week on Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're missing out on football and you want something to watch.
That's the only thing that's really on next week.
Unless you want to watch Madden. You get the Southwest region. You get A.J. Chapman versus Benjamin Martinez, the 4-5 matchup. The winner takes on Kevin Williams. The winner of that takes on a member of the House, Patrick Hanahan. And then you get our favorite guy, Francois Lavoie, the number 1 seed, who, of course, I am picking.
Yeah, I'm taking him too.
And then we get to the Royal Rumble. It is this Sunday. It is my favorite pay-per-view. My buddy Doof and I both spend this week, and now it has to take 2 or 3 weeks with how many years the Rumble's been going on. Going back just watching the Rumble matches. Mm-hmm. I've watched 6 or 7 the last couple of days. Just put them on in the background. I just my favorite match.
What time are we starting?
I believe it's a 4 o'clock start.
4 o'clock
on Sunday.
So social distancing.
So once bowling gets done.
Yep, flip it right
so I need there's going to be another match, I think, added on here. We only have we have 3 matches and then the 2 Rumble matches. We got SmackDown still coming up, so I'm sure we'll get an IC title match that they've been building, anything like that. But just real quick, as we're ending the show, I need your prediction on these matches.
Okay, here we go.
WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match. It's Asuka and Charlotte Flair, who are the champions, taking on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, who were the former champions.
I like Flair and Asuka.
I do too. I'm a little worried storyline-wise. Asuka has the women's championship, the Raw Women's Championship, and the Tag Team Championship. Do they try to get her to only have 1 belt? I think they do that later. I'm going Asuka and Charlotte as well. WWE Championship is Drew McIntyre, the champion, versus Goldberg. Because why?
Yeah.
It's not the 90s. I'm so sick of Goldberg being on my television. Give me Drew McIntyre.
I like Goldberg. Every time he's come back out of retirement, he's won. That was kind of the storyline earlier today. Where I was watching some of Raw from last night, that was a big storyline. Every time he's come out of retirement, he has won. McIntyre says, I'm not going to do that, but I don't know. I just like Goldberg. I'm going to go that way.
WWE Universal Championship match and the last man standing. The best story going on in wrestling, period. Roman Reigns, the champion, taking on Kevin Owens. Roman Reigns,
crazy, head of the table.
WWE faithful, the hardcore internet fans have been begging for years. Turn Roman Reigns heel. Make him a bad guy. It's good. We want that so bad. We hate him as a good guy. They turned him heel. They turned him into a bad guy. He's the best thing in wrestling right now.
Yeah, it's crazy watching the storyline with him right now, being the head of the table, his cousin following him around, Jey Uso, and never really been a huge Paul Heyman fan, but what he's done for the wrestling business over the many years, I think that storyline right now has been interesting, but they've got you in the hand right now. I mean, he is the SOB of the league, and that's what they wanted. So
what do you got?
I'm going to take Owens. I think Owens has got he's got that fire coming in, and this is what match number 3 between the 2 of them.
As far as big match, title matches, yep.
Yeah.
I'm saying Owens or Roman Reigns retains. He's going to lose it at Mania, I think. Women's Royal Rumble. A big story for me is Alexa Bliss and her stuff with the Fiend and Randy Orton and getting a nasty RKO by Orton on Monday. It looks so great.
Don't tell me that.
There you go.
I'm only in a half hour of Monday's show.
Now you know the last 2 seconds of the show. Apologies. Not really. I don't care. Raw's been terrible. Alexa Bliss for me.
I was leaning Shayna Baszler just because, but now that they're wrestling on for the title, I don't think she's going to have much left to win it. So give me Bayley out of SmackDown.
Because I'm the wrestling nerd, Shayna Baszler was the last person eliminated last year in the Women's Royal Rumble, getting knocked out by Charlotte. Look out for Bianca Belair. They've been pushing her storyline-wise. I watched her live in Portland, one of the last wrestling shows that had crowds at the NXT TakeOver there. Fantastic.
I didn't really like the story this week with her and the whole gauntlet. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
All right.
Men's Royal Rumble. Who you got?
Men's, I'd love to see Keith Lee make it, but I don't think he's going to have a 20 to 30 number. I think he's probably going to be about mid-range, 12, 13, 14. So I'm going to take AJ Styles. But my long shot would be Keith Lee.
Yeah, I would love to see Keith Lee do it. Mine is Daniel Bryan. They're kind of pushing it a little bit, storyline-wise. My long shot, Cesaro. Yeah. Please. I wanted that before, and now they're starting to tease it a little bit. Anyways, there you go.
Crazy.
I got my wrestling in for the month. All right. Robert, it is now time for This Week in Sports History. You got 2 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to go really quick. 1980, on January 20th, President Carter announces that the U.S. is boycotting the Olympics in Moscow. In 2010, on January 21st, Kobe Bryant becomes the youngest player to 25,000 career points at 31 years old and 151 days. 1983, Houston Rockets are held to 0 points in overtime versus Portland Trailblazers, losing by 17, 113 to 96. Also in the 22nd, 2006, Kobe Bryant scores 81 points for the Lakers over Toronto, second highest game to Wilt Chamberlain. We'll figure all this information on Kobe with being his passing the other day, or like a year ago today. 1953, NFL Dallas Texans become the Baltimore Colts, who are now the Indianapolis Colts. I did throw this one in there for you. The history, 1984 on January 23rd, Hulk Hogan defeats the Iron Sheik to win the first WWF title of his first. Yep.
Is that where your trivia questions is going?
No, actually it's not.
I could tell you who the Iron Sheik beat.
Yeah, probably.
Bob Backlund.
Bob Backlund. Oh my God. I saw him in later.
I'm such a nerd.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was before I was born. I was born in '84.
This one really stood out to me. 1993, Michael Jordan scores double figures for the 800 consecutive game in a row. He finished his career with 866 in a row to be second all time behind LeBron James, who is active right now with 1,012 double-digit games. So crazy to think about.
Right. Now, give me my trivia.
All right. All right. Well, I've got to get to. I got to find it here. All right. We skipped over the question of the thing, but here we go. Who holds the record for the most points in a quarter in the NBA?
I would rather have a Hogan question.
I know you would have, but
who holds the record for a team?
Right, because in 1991, Houston guard Vernon Maxwell is the fourth player to score 30 points in a quarter. Who holds the record for most points in a record?
Player.
Yep. Who holds the record for the most points in a quarter?
Thompson, right?
Dude, how did you get that?
Because I watched the highlights of that not too long ago.
God, they're crazy. How many points did he have? Do you remember?
I forget, but he had like 8 threes or something in that.
Yeah, he ended up 37 points back on January 23rd, which would have been in this group in 2015. 37 points. Wazoo boy.
Yeah, it ended up on my YouTube feed the other day, probably because it was the anniversary.
Dang.
Yeah, just the hilarity of the commentators just going what is happening?
Yeah.
And Steph Curry just give him the ball.
I'm going to say one more, and it's just because it sticks out. In 1960, West Virginia player from Burnsville High School, Danny Heater, scores the highest point total in a single game of 135 points. This record still stands. He was 53 of 70 from field goal and was 29 of 41 from the free throw line.
We are out of time. But your parents want to know why we were trying to figure out wrestling winners. It's all fake. It's not fake. It's scripted. Big difference. Don't fight the nerd on this one.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
I'm getting back into it a little bit. I have to. It's something different, not being able to watch a lot of stuff.
All right. So that is it for this week. We will be previewing the Super Bowl next week, and that'll take up the whole hour, as well as all of your basketball, baseball, hockey, wrestling, golf, whatever, news.
We didn't get any hockey this week. Oh, my God.
Hey, my Sabres won today.
There you go.
But it is 8 o'clock, so that means we are done. Thank you so much for joining us. Definitely check out the R&R Sports Report Facebook page and YouTube page and the KLCZ 88.9 Facebook page as well. But for now, that's Robert, I'm Randy, and we are out. Scripted. Funny. It's true. It's scripted. It's not fake. They do the moves.
It is. It is scripted.
It hurts. It hurts them. It hurts me. My body hurts. I did stuff for a while. All right. Bye.
See ya.